Here's my latest LEGO Technic model, which is an excavator. So this one was initially going to be built for a Eurobricks contest where we had to build a tracked vehicle with no more than 4 motors. So my challenge was to make as many functions as possible using 4 motors. So basically we've got a servo motor that shifts between one of 3 different gears, and then we have 3 large motors that go into this gearbox, and then each of them has 3 functions. So there's 3 modes, and then 3 motors per function. And then one other motor I added at the end because I ended up finishing this far after the deadline for the contest, so I could kind of do whatever I wanted. So, alright, so just as far as aesthetics go, nothing too crazy. Honestly, almost painfully simple in the rear, but I didn't care that much, so I just made it pretty simple. So for functions that don't have to do with the gearbox, we've got some basic bogey suspension on here, and we've also got the small linear actuator in there that I can twist this here to adjust the track tension by sliding the front sprocket forward and backward. Then I've got a knob up here for this kind of weird mechanism I came up with that then allows me to open these. Then we've got the straight 6 piston engine that I added last minute just because I had room. So that's using a 5th motor, power function is medium motor, and it's just there. That would not have been contest legal, and the model really doesn't need it, but I could add it, so I figured why not. So while we're in here, we can take a look at the gearbox. So there's a servo motor underneath that large motor, and it shifts through 3 different gears, or 3 different functions. 1, 2, 3. And we got those 3 large motors. So those will be doing different functions in a minute. So the first set of functions is for drive. And then we've also got superstructure rotation. Which we can do unlimited number of rotations. Next we've got the main arm functions. So we've got the primary boom, secondary part of the arm, and the bucket. The bucket is a 3D printed copy of the large one that came in the Volvo Excavator last summer. Didn't feel like buying that part just for this model, so just exported a file from Studio Part Designer and printed it. Thought I'd just show off how far down the boom can go, getting it off the edge of the table. So now for the rest of the functions. We've got the blade on the front. So you can't really see it, it's just supporting the whole excavator, but if I put the weight here, you can see it moving up and down. So that function is one of the ones that's a little more interesting. If you're familiar with Technic, you might know that typically you can only get 2 functions to go through a turntable mechanically. But for this, I actually used the central axle, and there's a lever that pushes down on the top of it. So it pushes it down and presses against a rubber band to move the blade up and down, and then that axle is also driven. So it's got 2 functions, both rotary and axial, I guess. Then we've got, not that one, the claw. Should allow it to pick stuff up. And then the final motorized function is a attachment attacher, I guess. So we've got this linear actuator here, which is pulling on an axle. There's some rubber bands involved. And so it allows you to detach a bucket, which is just on with these like bionicle joint pieces. And then if we get it back into position, you could theoretically do this by lining the boom up right, but that sounds extremely challenging given these tolerances. So I could have designed some other attachments that would go on here, but I did not. Alright, so those are the functions. Now I just want to try to show a little bit more of how stuff works. So, there's the bottom of our gearbox. More functions going in there. I was talking about how this blade works. It's on this here, and then that red axle is both being driven for drive, but also being pressed to control the blade. It's being pressed by that little bar up there, which you can't really see. Then I wanted to, oh, it's still off. Wanted to show how the drive is transmitted to the arm. So we've got doubled up universal joints here because a normal universal joint wouldn't have the right degree of travel to get around the curve, so you have to use doubled up ones. And then I needed a double half stud offset on the joint to get it to actually line up with the like virtual pivot, I guess, of the two universal joints. Then it comes up to this fixed joint in the arm, more universal joints. Then the arm narrows, more universal joints. Then we go through another joint, more doubled up and even kind of tripled up joints. And then, yeah. So some of these shafts would have probably like a couple universal joints in there, 3, 4 there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe up to 10 universal joints in their drivetrain. It gets kind of absurd, but it seems to work, which is nice. Another thing I found kind of fun, I'm using 2 wave selectors for my transmission, but in order to keep it compact enough, I ended up synchronizing them so they're both engaging this central driving ring. And just always agreeing about where it needs to be. There's probably 6 driving rings in all. It's been a while since I built this part, to be honest. I think so, yeah. There's one underneath there. So a lot of transmission going on. Overall, I think I'm pretty pleased with this model. The functions seem to work pretty reliably. There's a few exceptions. It's a little tricky to get the bucket to go on here. And then while I was filming, I noticed that this track wasn't driving backwards, but I'm guessing that's just damage somewhere that needs to be fixed. But honestly, fairly reliable. Looks clean, if not amazing. Maybe a little too simple. But it's really fun to be able to get some new mechanical functions in there. I've never done that like 3x3 remote control distribution gearbox, or getting 3 functions through the turntable in a different way was kind of fun. And then just running them in universal joints through the arm was kind of interesting too. The build process was honestly one of the more, I don't know, torturous ones I've had. Not that the model itself was actually that hard to build, I just was working on a lot of other projects, so it took way longer than usual with long periods where I wasn't working on it. But glad to have it done, and hopefully start working on some other stuff soon. Yeah, thanks for watching.